Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. This is episode 510. We've got a great guest. We've got Will Middleton on the show. He's well known in the LifterLMS community, helps support Lifter, and also is part of the Facebook pages, and just a great chat. Will, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me on. And I guess Jonathan introduced me pretty well. Yeah, I'm just a freelancer, dove into the LifterLMS and WordPress space. And yeah, I started making some YouTube videos on it. And yeah, just kind of evolved from there in the LifterLMS space.
Yeah, and I got my great co-host, Adrian. Adrian, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian. I'm the CEO and founder of Groundhog. We help small businesses simplify, consolidate, automate their marketing, automation, and sales.
That's great. And we had a load of new listeners last month. So if you're joining the show, thank you for becoming a member of the WordPress, the WP-Tonic tribe. Before we go into the main topic of the show, we're going to be discussing everything about LifterLMS, its suitability for somebody starting off, its strengths, its weaknesses, things that Will has noticed that people do it when building out a course, the kind of mistakes they make. We'll be covering it all, listeners and viewers. But before we get into the main part of the show, I'd like to discuss our sponsors. And our main sponsor is Kinsta. And Kinsta's been sponsoring the show as the main sponsor for over 2 years. They're a great hosting company. We host the WP-Tonic site with them. That never had any problems, really quick. And the main thing is you get fantastic support. The support is some of the best on the market, I feel. So if you've got a critical site for clients or for yourself in WooCommerce or in the learning space, you need great hosting and great support. And that's what you're going to get with Kinsta. So go over, buy a package for yourself or for your client, and the main thing is tell them that you heard about them on the WP-Tonic show. Our next sponsor is WP Fusion. They're a friend of the show. They've been supporting the show for a couple of years now, on and off, and just an amazing product. If you got like Active Campaign, Drip, ConvertKit, there's a lot of CRMs out there, and you want to put it on a different level, your automation, well, you need WP Fusion with WordPress with your external CRM, or you should look at Groundhog. But if you're looking at external one, WP Fusion, it really does make the whole process so much more easier and much more powerful. So go over to WP Fusion, have a look at their product, buy one of their packages, and also tell them you heard about them on the show.
Jack Arturo, the developer, is also just like brilliant and a genius and a great guy all around.
Yeah, he's just a fantastic developer, isn't he? And he's just a really humble guy as well. And the two things don't always go together, do they, Adrian?
No, sometimes you get great software and terrible support. Sometimes you get terrible software and great support. And Jack seems to be able to provide the best of both worlds.
Yeah, there we go. So let's go into it, Will. So, Will, what are some of the things you think when a person is looking to build a course and they're looking to build it on WordPress and Lifter? What are some of the things people got to know about, or kind of the mistakes people do at the beginning that you've noticed?
Yeah, a lot of one huge mistake I've seen, and this happens with people who are forming their first course, is they don't get niche enough and really get specific with their course offering and who their offering's for. And that it kind of overgeneralization leads to them having like a ton of competition with people who already have like email lists and everything built up. But if you serve like a really specific audience in a really specific way and answer questions that are already being asked by the community you're trying to serve, then you position yourself really well. So it's really positioning is a huge mistake that I see people fall into without when they don't niche enough and find like a really specific offering.
What process do you have to like nail down niche? Because I see this all the time. People just go way too broad. You know, the age-old adage, if you're selling to everybody, you're selling to nobody, right? So what process do you help people, or can you recommend to people to go through and really sort of focus that?
For sure. One way is to start out by answering really specific questions people have and kind of forming from there. That's somewhat of what I'm doing with my YouTube channel. Whenever I hear someone ask a question in like a Facebook group or something, I'll make like a quick 2-minute YouTube video about how to do that specific thing, and maybe I'll respond to their thread with that as an answer. And that'll really help point you in the right direction as to what kind of content people are looking for, because it might not be the course that you want to build, that you want to look at what they want to hear. Another thing for like niching, like a niching exercise I use is like the niche rule of 4, where you go like 4 levels deep. So if you're trying to build like an online course, maybe it's like an online course for
health and wellness.
Yeah, like health and wellness. And then that's like one level, and you want to get more specific. Maybe it's health and wellness for men specifically. Maybe it's health and wellness for men over 40. Maybe it's health and wellness for dads over 40. So now you're like really specific, and you can really target your offering from there. Just going through that exercise a few times and figuring out.
That's an interesting rule of thumb. 4, so you go like 4 levels deep. That's interesting. I've never actually heard that one before. That's useful. Thank you.
I've been thinking about this for the past 6 months, and I just want to put this to you and get your feedback about it, Will. I think if you found a niche, and before you build any course out, if you can't establish a credible presence on YouTube, an audience of, let's say 40 to 70,000 people for your niche area, if you can't build an audience on your YouTube channel around that subject, I think you're going to find it very hard to build an ongoing course that will provide consistent income. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I don't really have any course programs myself at the moment. I use YouTube to kind of like upsell to my freelance work, but I'm definitely looking to get into that kind of like recurring revenue model. And I think getting started on YouTube is a great way to practice making consistent content and figuring out what kind of content is valuable to the niche you're serving. And you'll tell by like the likes in your videos, comments on your videos, how many shares and stuff it gets. That really helps you tap into like what kind of content you'd want to be putting into your recurring membership program, and kind of really flesh out what your audience is looking for and get in the habit of creating that content.
Yeah, I just think, unless you experience in television or film production and that, I think being able to use YouTube and the building up of a following, you learn so many other things, don't you? You learn basic SEO, basic film craft, kind of content that will appeal to your target audience. So I think it's crucial to build a significant, it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of people, because I think if you're in a niche, I think between 50 and 70,000 people is quite achievable. What do you think?
Yeah, especially depending on how long you do it, and if you really focus in on what content performs well on your channel, you could really scale it up to that amount. Like Angela Brown is a popular example. I don't know if you've heard of her in the LifterLMS community. She has a house cleaning business. She teaches house cleaners how to run their businesses, and she's gotten really large on YouTube. I think she's at like 80,000 subscribers or something. So she's right in that perfect.
Yeah, over to you, Adrian.
So, Will, you and I are actually currently working together on a few projects. I use courses in my own business. I use them as a customer success tool for training purposes on the various different things you can do. And I know that, and I outlined you to kind of what I was expecting. I want like short videos, like hour maximum course completion time, like the videos at most like 15 minutes long. However, in the past, I know that with like tools like LifterLMS, you're a fan of Chris once referred to me as an epic video, which is like 4 hours long, start to finish, one take, and distributing your information in that format. Now, I'm curious if what kind of expectation when someone actually watches that video, do they get through the whole thing? Is there any sort of psychological trigger or pull for an epic 4 hour long video versus the way that I prefer to do it, which is like short bite-sized videos in a course format? What's your take on the difference?
For sure. Yeah, the short form video is actually more natural to me. Like whenever I have like one quick question, I can just knock out a video. But then Chris came to me last year and said, hey, I have this idea for an epic video. Like I think WP Crafter did one too that was like many hours long. And yeah, that one's for like total WordPress beginner who wants like a step-by-step, click-by-click, the whole thing, building from WordPress from scratch all the way to like a full LifterLMS, WooCommerce, cart flows, everything kind of site. So yeah, they're kind of for different audiences. If you are looking for just like a quick setup, quick getting started, and you really want to dive into it yourself, then the shorter videos are more optimal for you because they'll get you to where you want to go really quickly. But if you really want to sit down and see someone go through step by step and really talk through everything you're doing, and you could really just put like, your 10-year-old child down in front of the computer and they could follow along click by click and just make the process super simple, then the 4-hour epic video is kind of the way to go.
Do you have any sort of like, or any sort of knowledge on, let's say, like the completion rate or the success rate of people who sit down and tune in for 4 hours? Because for like a course, you can like that's in bite size. There's like benchmarks and stages, so you can leave and come back at the stage. But if you're like committing to like an epic video, it's hard to like remember where you left off and pick it right back up. And so you're sitting down for 4 hours. Do you know what the kind of like the customer experience is on the completion end?
I don't know too much about the completions metrics for that specific video, but there was like a really positive response to it. Like people seem to really like that kind of video. I don't know how many of them actually sat down and watched the whole thing, or there are timestamps in that video. Like in 10 minutes, we dive into Elementor, and then at 30 minutes, we dive into like cart flows. So you can click around, and maybe if you're already partway through having built a WordPress website, you might be able to skip down and just find the parts that are going to be relevant to you. But the long video itself is kind of like an entire course just packed into one video with like those lessons as like kind of timestamps on there. But yeah, I'm not too sure about the like the completion rate of actually sitting down and watching 0 to 4 hours. But yeah, people seem to really really
connect
like
with it well.
Yeah.
That's cool. And you can put like the times you mentioned, you can put the timestamps in like the video description to say we start at this point here.
Yeah. And it might also be like mentally reassuring to just know that there's that resource available. If you ever do get stuck, there's like the click by click tutorial you can always come back to and jump around in that.
Very cool. Jonathan?
Yeah. So what do you think is, when a person's looking to build their first course, what do you think is the optimum, the sweet spot for how many lessons and the size, length of video, and what should be in that course? Have you thought about that and come to a conclusion where the sweet spot for that first course is?
Yeah, it's it would change for every kind of audience and what kind of course you're building, but like always want to keep it minimalistic and just focus on getting the result rather than how long your course content is. And that'll often end up in like a course that's maybe like 10 lessons. Like if you look at like the Groundhog courses, seem super effective. The LifterLMS Quick Start course, they're like roughly about 5 sections with 5 lessons per section. And so they're super effective with like those short videos you can just knock out. And you could even jump around in the course if there was a lesson you wanted to skip. But roughly keeping a course under 25 lessons really challenges you as a course creator to really get into the impact and get the results rather than
get to the point already.
yeah. Instead of making like a massive course, it's like hundreds of lessons and focusing on creating all the content you can, just really limit yourself to try and stay within the 25 lessons, 5 sections, 5 lessons per section, and just get the results.
Most people don't want to or don't want to have to watch 25 lessons to get to a result. They want it. If they could get it in video 1, they could.
Yeah, that's totally true. And when course creators think about it, a lot of the time they're saying, when they advertise, they're advertising all the content they have and they're trying to build up this massive library. But
it's like the content is valuable in and of itself, but it's really not.
No, yeah, it's the result that they want.
Yeah,
that's great. We're going to go for our break. We're coming back. Got a great guest. He's helped a lot of people with LifterLMS and he's part of the Lifter support team. So I think he's got some great insights. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. Coming back, we're talking about learning management systems, specifically LifterLMS with Will Middleton. So Will, We also got this, and I think it's going to get broader, this slight divide between those that use LifterLMS with Elementor and those that use Lifter with Gutenberg. And and of course, you've got other page builders as well. So, but
Chris himself is a fan of Beaver Builder.
yeah, exactly. So how do you see this panning out? Do you see this divide continuing? And at the present moment, how would you advise somebody that would come to you and say, well, Will, should I use Elementor with LifterLMS or should I use Gutenberg?
Yeah, it's pretty much whatever feels the best for you to build your course content in. Some people get overwhelmed by Elementor, especially if they're newer to WordPress, and they see like the sidebar in Elementor and all the widgets and all the settings, and that just overwhelms them and slows them down from being able to build their site and launch their course. And if you don't feel comfortable with that builder, that's totally fine. Just go with the default WordPress editor. The default WordPress block editor is a bit easier to use. You're not able to control things like padding, which would be like the spacing between elements specifically to that granular level as you can with Elementor. But it's really just about suiting your audience. And that's one thing I see a lot of people get caught up in, is they get so complicated with the tech, thinking that they need to make their website like a technical masterpiece, when really it's about that course content. Yeah. And so there's no shame at all in feeling, going with just the basic Gutenberg editor. And it's probably actually better if you could get the same result with a simpler tool, the Gutenberg editor, without having to dive into all the tech. But if you really do want to go to the next level with the design, Elementor is a great tool.
Well, I suppose in a way, if you just want to keep to the basics with Elementor, you don't have to dive into, even with Elementor, if you just want to keep to the basics. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. And you don't have to use Elementor in everything. Like I see some people use the default WordPress editor on their courses, and then Elementor is just for their sales pages, where they really want to make something look good. So you don't have to go Elementor or Gutenberg. You could mix it up and use Elementor in specific places and Gutenberg in other places.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that people tend to forget, don't they, Will? Over to you, Adrian.
So most, I think a lot of course creators, they create their first course and they think that even if it's like a results-based course and they don't see the content as valuable itself with the result, most of them believe that the course is kind of just like enough to start getting people to buy into the program. However, over time, I don't think that's necessarily true. People are expecting a lot more from their purchase than just, well, the video content, I guess, depending on how you frame it. What residual aspects of actually running a course business would you expect that a business owner has to keep in mind when they launch their first course?
For sure. I guess one thing I hear a lot is that like recurring revenue is like the key to scaling things. So figuring out how to add that recurring value so you can have recurring revenue is important. Like with selling a one-time course, a lot of people might get through the course and then they might fade out, but keeping in touch with those people and maybe like upselling to a private coaching forum or like a weekly group Zoom or something like that might be something useful. Kind of thinking about the course as, especially if it's a one-time payment, as kind of like a lead magnet or it's not the end of the funnel necessarily. And depending on what kind of business you're in and what kind of services you can offer, the main thing I'd say across the board is just look for opportunities for recurring revenue. And if your course doesn't provide that recurring value, you can't really add in the recurring revenue, but just if the course doesn't provide the recurring value, maybe try and find some sort of an upsell from your course to that.
How would you ensure that your course provided the requirements to be willing to part with X amount of dollars yearly or monthly?
I would say it would vary based on like every course, but if you just have a group coaching offer, like once a week you host a group coaching call.
Like a mastermind?
Yeah, like a mastermind. That would help you figure it out really quickly what people are looking for in the recurring value. And the recurring mastermind with you, the course creator, might be enough in itself, but that might also give you ideas off of what people are looking for.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned multiple courses or at least the beginning of the funnel. Would you recommend creating so in like Russell Brunson's methodology, which I read his book .com Secrets and Expert Secrets a long time ago. If you haven't done so, I'd recommend it. But they have something called like the value ladder, and they have your tripwire, and then your core offering, and then your profit maximizer at the top of the ladder. Each is exponentially more expensive than the other. If you were a brand new course creator and you were starting out, would you work on core offer first, or would you just start off with the tripwire and start attempting to build the list?
Yeah, there's a few different methodologies to it. I've probably started myself doing the tripwire, but I guess like with my business, my core offering right now is like freelance stuff, and then I have like my YouTube video and like free content there. So I guess I did have my service offering first. So that is an important thing for validation too, is making sure people will pay. If you start out with a tripwire or like some free content, people might be interested in that, but they're not interested in paying for that. So I think building out your core offering first is a better thing to validate, and then figuring out what will get people into your core offering, like making YouTube videos and stuff like that, would be like somewhat secondary to that.
Well, that makes sense. Thank you very much for that. John?
I think one of the strengths of Lifter is that with the free core product, with just the Stripe add-on for $99, you got a fully functioning LMS platform, isn't it? But what are some of the other core add-ons that you think really offer great value, and also some third-party ones as well?
For sure. I guess, yeah, exactly like you said, just one payment gateway, PayPal or Stripe or whatever, along with the free core plugin, is just $99 for a fully functioning LMS. I see a lot of people look at the Infinity bundle. They're like, Lifter's so expensive. Like, I mean, most people don't go into a car dealership and say, what's the most expensive car you have? Oh, that's a little too expensive for me. You don't need everything.
Well, it is the best value on the market at the present moment for $99 for what you get. Like I say, for $99, you're up and running, aren't you?
For sure, yeah. And I would say some other add-ons would be
because there's a lot of internal add-ons, aren't there? You can go Infinity, Universal, Infinity, and there's quite a few third-party. If you've got like 2 to 3 that you think that really bring some extra functionality that by using it, you think it's worth the price of paying.
For sure, yeah. They all apply in some different scenarios, but some super popular ones would be like advanced quizzes. Lifter has like the free quiz system with multiple choice, picture choice, and true false. But if you really wanted to go to the next level and have like a lot more interactive quizzes, that's a really popular one. And then of course like groups and stuff, if you're selling to like corporations and you want to have that private group area.
So how's group going? Because that's their most recent add-on. How do you think that's going then, Will?
It's going pretty well. Like Lifter's had this voucher code system for a long time that serves a very similar purpose, but it was a lot more manual. With groups, the corporate can actually manage themselves and send out email invites to their students and stuff like that to enroll. So I kind of think of it as like a super advanced voucher system. It's like the next level of that. And so that's a super neat add-on specifically. And then to plug WP Fusion, if you're working with a CRM or Groundhog too, like having that tie into your marketing, plus LifterLMS, like I know Groundhog has like a LifterLMS integration where you can change your email messaging based on when they enroll in the course. So there's like tags and triggers, so you can know if you're working with WP Fusion, that would tell ActiveCampaign when somebody enrolled in a course, or Groundhog has its own integration to then kind of change up your email interaction and get those touch points with people who are in your courses. That's also like a key add-on to have, is the CRM integration.
Yeah, but it does kind of, it's interesting that you choose that, because that whole area kind of intimidates people to some extent, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. There's, when you start thinking about like an email list is pretty easy to comprehend, like these are the people you're emailing, but then when you break it down into customer segments and tagging those segments and creating automations to send out emails, it can totally be intimidating. But if you think about it as just creating like an opt-in, like if you have a lead magnet, like a free resource, all your CRM is doing is just sending them a free resource when they give you their email. And then you can build things out from there if you wanted to, but on the simplest level, that's all you need to have in a CRM.
Rightio. I think we'll wrap it up for the podcast part of the show. Will's staying on. We're going to be asking him a few questions. I'm going to be asking him about, why you should look at WooCommerce and integrate that, and when you should just stay with the Stripe. And I've got a few other questions. So, Will, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, so if you head to WPCourseGuide.com, that's the best place to see everything I'm doing there. Or you could probably find me on YouTube, or you probably will come across me on YouTube at some point if you're in the LifterLMS space.
Yeah, how many videos roughly do you have on your YouTube channel now?
I think we're probably around 150. I went on in 2019 for like 3.5 months. I did a video every day, so I really got kicked off there. But then I've been doing about 1-2 a month ever since then.
Oh, that's great. Adrian, what's the best way to find out more about you and Groundhog?
Well, we talked a lot about LifterLMS during this episode. So if you're using LifterLMS and you need to tie in marketing automation to send out better transactional emails or course completion reminders, enrollment abandonment, we can take care of a lot of stuff. You can go to groundhogwith2gs.io. We actually have a LifterLMS focused course on our Academy website that will explain all of the cool integrations that you can do with Groundhog and email marketing and LifterLMS together. So great stuff. And that's available for free. And that's at academy.groundhogwith2gs.io.
That's great. And if you really want to support the show, folks, go over to Apple and leave us a review. It really does help the show. It really puts us higher in the ratings with Apple, and it enables us to get great guests like Will to agree to come on and be interviewed by me and Adrian. We will be back next week. Remember, there's bonus content which you can listen to on the WP-Tonic website or our YouTube channel. We'll be back next week with another great guest like Will. See you soon, folks. Bye. So, Will, when it so like I say, you can start with Stripe. We tend, because we set this up for people, we tend just to go down the and we offer with our fully hosted solution, we offer the universal bundle, and we just offer the WooCommerce solution. We set it up using WooCommerce. When do you think people should look maybe at WooCommerce instead of just the Stripe or PayPal solution?
For sure. Yeah, so the WooCommerce, some of the main things it adds above and beyond what the Lifter system does by default would be like a cart system. That's a big thing. The ability to add multiple things to your cart and purchase multiple courses in the a la carte system.
Yeah, we add in the package Cartflow Pro, so you can build, modern shopping cart environment, upsells, downsells, that type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And the integrations with like cart flows or launch flows, just like creating those like super advanced sales funnels, you could do that as well. Another thing is for people outside of the US, specifically in like the European Union, they need to collect like VAT numbers on checkout. And so since Lifter doesn't do that out of the box at the moment, I think with like Lifter custom fields, that might be coming down the line, but at the moment you would need to use WooCommerce in order to use that more advanced tax system.
Right.
Also,
go on, sorry.
Also like integration, if you're like in India and you need to use like PayUmoney or something like that, a gateway that doesn't work with Lifter directly, you might want to look at WooCommerce too.
Yeah, because it covers almost all gateways, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If a gateway doesn't work with WooCommerce, maybe you should look at a different gateway, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
All right, over to you, Adrian.
So you seem to know a whole lot about making courses with LifterLMS, but you don't actually have your own LifterLMS course. So when can we expect that? How much will it cost, and what will it help people with?
For sure. Yeah, I did build like one LifterLMS course about like the journey to Eagle Scout. Like that was like the first course I ever built, first exposure to Lifter. But as far as like a course I've built since then, I built a few like on the LifterLMS Academy and stuff. But my first course, like my first paid course, is probably coming like 3 months down the line, it's just about building a full site with LifterLMS, Elementor, and some advanced custom fields, and just setting yourself up for really building any kind of LMS site you need to.
What are we going to expect to have to pay for that? You are going to charge for it, right?
Yeah. I think that's about I think $100 course. I announced it on the LMS cast like a few months back, and when that episode comes out, I'll have to make sure the course is ready and good to go. I'm assuming that'll be about 2-3 months down the line from now.
Right on. And is that going to, because we talked about all of these things, and now I guess you're going to have to go and implement all of it. Are you going to have like the recurring and the support and the mastermind to go along with all of this?
I might build that out on top of it. Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about, is how to add that recurring value, because that is totally the key to scaling and adding that myself. Adding a weekly group office hours is something I might try out. That seems to be the best way to really get a bearing on what your customers are looking for.
It sounds what you really need is like a video documentary series of actually putting this together, and then you could create a course. You have both your actual like Liver course, and then you have the course of creating a course for a course. It's courseception.
For sure, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I did some recording I was planning on including like a template in the course if you want to just upload a template and get started. And I was recording myself making the template, so I was already going down that track you're talking about of recording myself making the course. That'd be awesome.
I find that that's often like some of the most valuable content is recording yourself in the process of delivering your core offering, because just as many people want to know how you did that as the other thing that you're training. So
for sure, yeah. In that like 4-hour video that's almost a course itself, I wrote out in a text document like what all the steps were that I was going to go through, and I do show that a few times in the video, just incidentally, just to be clear like what I'm working off of. And I didn't actually stick to that the whole time. I like changed the script as I was going through it, just to see like my process as I was doing it.
Yeah, I'm actually we're my own team is like working on building some sort of a SaaS tool, and we have to adopt a new technology stack for that. And there's this great kind of like there's a guy that is posting on Twitch, and he's like building a SaaS company from day one, and he's just like vlogging literally every tiny detail of building his SaaS, from the code to the customer support and everything. And I find that that's just such like an interesting concept, especially when you're like, if your core offering is a SaaS, but you also have the training for other people how to build it. I just find that it's like super interesting. So I hope that comes to fruition, because I would love to see that process.
For sure.
I've got a question for you, Adrian. Because obviously we were talking about WP Fusion, and we're also talking about your own product. Now, your own product, you got add-on that integrates with LifterLMS, but also you got add-on that integrates with WP Fusion, don't you?
Well, WP Fusion integrates with us.
Integrates with us. So what do you think? Are there a clear boundary where, what I'm trying to clarify, what's the boundary where you might be better looking, you start off with the Lifter element, when you're using Lifter and you want to use Groundhog, you use that add-on, but is there a clear boundary where you might be better off looking at WP's Fusion product and then integrating it with Lifter?
There's certainly
Groundhog, I mean.
Yeah, there's certainly overlap. I mean, there's a lot of overlap. We actually do. We have inherently a lot of features that just WP Fusion has, because they're a WordPress plugin. We're a WordPress plugin. We offer integrations, and so do they. So there's a lot of overlap a lot of the time, although we do things in different ways. For example, I mean, visually, a lot of our integration happens within our funnel builder. So you can put LifterLMS in the funnel builder itself, so you can see the visual representation of how that happens. So he's like enrolled in course, send this email, etc., etc. With WP Fusion, everything is tag based, and we have a very prolific tagging system in Groundhog, WP Fusion uses that. So in WP Fusion, everything would be tag based. So in the funnel, it would be like when this tag is applied, then send this email, send this, or with this amount of time, send this next email. And you wouldn't see that LifterLMS representation. You'd only see the tag that gets applied when they enroll in a course or a membership or whatever else. So that's the biggest difference. Where WP Fusion would be a great choice is if you want to work with Jack, and because Jack's great. And also if you have a lot of other WordPress plugins installed on the site that we don't integrate with. Because if you go get WP Fusion, you kind of just get like a one-size-fits-all, integrates with like 100 or more other WordPress plugins to Groundhog. And we can't maintain integrations for hundreds of other WordPress plugins. We chose what we think are the winners and the ones that we want to support, and we have the integrations. But if you need integrations for stuff that we don't offer, then WP Fusion makes a great choice, and then you can also use LifterLMS integration with WP Fusion, and it's totally optional. You can also have both installed at the same time, and nothing would happen. Like, it wouldn't break anything. You can have them both functioning at the same time. There's no like overlap that would break anything. So that's also something to consider. So you can use both. It's not an either-or world.
Oh, thank. I just thought I would ask that because it might be causing our listeners and viewers some confusion, but I think you clarified that really well. Thanks, Adrian. Will, so is there anything in general in the in the WordPress learning management area, not only Lifter, but the other competitors? Do you think there's anything that you feel really does need to be improved in general? And a follow-through question, if somebody was coming to you and saying they were looking at Kajabi and they were looking at LifterLMS, how would you classify the strengths of Lifter compared to Kajabi?
Yeah, I guess with what would need to be improved, I guess that's something of what I'm working on myself. It's like when you first get started in WordPress, there's a lot you need to build yourself. There's a ton of power in what you can build in WordPress because you can really customize anything. But then you have the responsibility of managing all that yourself and figuring out all that. It's not, it can be a little bit harder to pick up if you're, trying to take like that templated approach. And I guess with like what I'm doing, creating tutorials and like those long videos and like courses and stuff, that might help to make that a little bit easier. But the out of the box setup is a little bit harder with like a WordPress tool, which is why like things like a setup wizard are really nice to help, get you off the ground, or like set up tutorials or like quick start courses and stuff. So I guess like the biggest weakness of the WordPress LMS space is that there's so much you can do that there's not a ton of direction, because you can go in any direction. So how are they going to send you in any specific one? But the education around the tool, I guess, is kind of like the solution to that. And just creating more tutorials about creating specific setups. I see is kind of like the solution to that.
And then last, the Kajabi question.
Oh yeah, so I would say like the best thing to do would be to work with the LMS that works for you. Kajabi has a lot less specific customization you could do. Of course, you could probably integrate with like a CRM, but then you have just significantly less control over, like if you want to do like an easy upsell or like a pop-up upsell inside of a lesson or something like that. It's a bit more limited in that capacity. I would say it's a little more out of the box, but then of course it's going to be more limited because there's more of like this is how Kajabi operates. You're going to have a little bit of a harder time extending outside of that.
So you would say it's when it comes to WordPress, its major weakness is it like all SaaS products, it can lack of flexibility depending on the business model and what you're looking for.
Yeah, somewhat. Or it's so flexible that it's not always exactly clear how to do exactly what you're looking for. And so you have to kind of learn that stuff a little bit yourself when working with WordPress.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, using both, I understand Kajabi's, they're very good at marketing, and they say it's everything that you will want to build a course. And their online training, I think one of their major strengths is their help documentation and the kind of hold your hand videos that pop up. But if I actually feel if you would totally new to building anything online, I think you would find Kajabi almost as intimidating as WordPress in a way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, somewhat. As the tools kind of add more features, they all kind of, yeah, they do all kind of end up being as intimidating. And but with like the support of WordPress YouTube videos, it can be kind of like the same process. Like if you really did want to go click by click, you can watch that 4-hour video and then end up in a similar space with more customization than you might be able to get with Kajabi.
Right, I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks, Will. You have to come back on the show. I think it's been a fascinating discussion. I think we covered a lot of stuff in about 45 minutes. We'll see you soon, listeners and viewers, with another great guest like Will. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay.